The house at the end of Sparrow Lane was known for its stillness. Not the peaceful stillness of a quiet evening, but a heavy, breathless quiet that seemed to press in on you from all sides. Eleanor, a seasoned paranormal investigator, had been called to the house for a reason she was still trying to grasp. The homeowners, a young couple named David and Sarah, weren't reporting the usual banging doors or disembodied whispers. Their story was far more unsettling. "It just watches," Sarah had whispered, her eyes wide with fear that went beyond simple fright. "From the corner of the room. It's a shadow, but deeper somehow, and it just stands there." Eleanor had scoffed internally. She had seen it all: charlatans, overactive imaginations, and genuine, albeit predictable, hauntings. A static shadow sounded like a trick of the light. Still, the fear in Sarah's eyes was authentic, and David's silence was just telling. Eleanor set up her equipment in the master bedroom, the epicenter of the sightings. She placed motion-activated cameras, EMF meters, and a digital audio recorder. The air in the room was thick and cold, a familiar sensation that no longer fazed her. She settled into a chair, ready for a long night of nothing. An hour passed, then two. The EMF meter remained silent, and the cameras showed only the empty room. Eleanor began to feel the familiar fatigue of a wasted night. She was about to pack up when she noticed something. A digital clock on the nightstand, which had read 10:15 p.m., now read 10:15 p.m. again. But the numbers were slightly skewed, as if a new layer had been placed over them. She blinked and they snapped back to normal. A prickle of unease ran down her spine. She dismissed it as tired eyes and glanced at the corner Sarah had described. It was empty, a deep, featureless patch of darkness. She sat for another hour, the silence of the house growing heavier, more oppressive. It wasn't just a lack of sound, it was an absence of life. Even the hum of the electrical outlets seemed to have faded. She checked her phone. The screen was black, dead. She tried the camera on her laptop. The lens was a solid, undenying black, as if it had been painted over from the inside. Panic, cold and sharp, began to set in. This wasn't a malfunction. It was a deliberate act. The devices weren't broken. They had been silenced. Eleanor looked back at the corner. This time, she saw it. It wasn't a shadow, it was a lack of light. A shape carved out of the very darkness of the room. It was humanoid, tall and slender, but with no discernible features. No eyes, no mouth, no hands. Just a profound, perfect absence. The entity didn't move. It didn't make a sound. It simply was. And as Eleanor stared, a horrifying thought occurred to her. It wasn't a ghost haunting the house. It was the house. The entity was an extension of the silence, a manifestation of the oppressive stillness, and it was studying her. She felt its gaze, a pressure on her mind as if a cold, dead hand was pressing against her thoughts. It wasn't looking at her, it was looking into her. It was dissecting her memories, her fears, her very essence. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body was frozen. The entity in the corner seemed to be drawing the air out of the room, leaving only a vacuum of dread. The silence was now absolute, so complete it was a sound in itself. A high-pitched ringing that was only in her head. Then, the shadow shifted. Not in a physical way, but in a way that defied physics. It didn't slide or walk. It expanded. A ripple of darkness flowing along the walls, coating them in a deeper, more profound black. Eleanor watched in terror as the blackness reached the door, the windows, the furniture. The room wasn't just dark. It was being consumed. The shadow stopped a few feet from her chair, and for the first time, Eleanor felt not just fear, but true existential horror. She had always believed that ghosts were echoes of the past, tormented spirits trapped between worlds. But this wasn't trapped. It was patient. It had been waiting for something, for someone. And now, it had found her. The shadow leaned in, a void of nothingness just inches from her face. And in the silence, Eleanor heard a thought, not with her ears, but directly in her mind. "You are wrong," the thought hissed, a whisper of absolute emptiness. "We aren't echoes. We are the ones who listened to the echoes for too long. And now, we are the silence." Eleanor felt a cold touch on her cheek, not the touch of a hand, but the absence of warmth, of life. And as the darkness began to envelop her, she knew she wasn't just going to die. She was going to become part of the silence, a new silent watcher in a house where no one ever screamed.